put your hands together for an all-time sports weekend. Just show your appreciation, show some respect.
Not if you're Bill Belichick.
You can live 2 lifetimes. You won't see everything that you saw go down this weekend. The greatest comeback, the most magnificent World Cup final, maybe the most suboptimal play in the history of a sport. Was it the greatest 48 hours of sports ever? I don't know if we think like that, but I'm asking it. Go.
Pretty good.
The amount of things we won't have time to do on today's show because there's just so much. We'll try our best, though. We will.
Like the Knicks winning 7 in a row.
Well, that's getting you on mute right now. I say again, overtime walk-offs, the all-time what's worse, blowing a 32-point lead or ladling your way out of everything. But we start with the magnificent World Cup final and the world we all live in today with Argentina and Lionel Messi, world champion. The way Argentina came out, the way France came back, the Messi and Mbappe irresistible force paradox playing out perfectly. Could be game winner, would be game tires. All-time moments from Argentina keeper Emiliano Martinez at the death of the match and the purgatory of PKs. And then in victory, Messi ascending straight into heaven. It was nearly unanimous from people who covered the sport and just people who watched. Greatest final ever. So my question to this national panel, do you agree? Was this the greatest World Cup final ever? And considering Messi and Mbappe and the stage, Frank Isola, could it be the greatest sporting event globally ever?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Super Bowls, World Series, NBA Finals, Stanley Cup, boxing matches. For me, it was the greatest sporting event I'd ever seen. To get 2 players like that, you could get 2 of the greatest players of all time, maybe the greatest player of all time. And let's remember a couple of things from this game. The second goal from Argentina, 6 players, 7 touches, culminating with the Angel Di Maria goal, was unbelievable. It was like a Laker fast break from back in the day with Magic Johnson. The Mbappe goal to tie it at 2, unbelievable, just a thing of beauty. And then to go into overtime, and you mentioned the save, Colomani on France, who came in as a sub, almost won it in the 123rd minute. And remember this, too, about France. They had a lot of illness in their camp. Players were in and out. I think a lot of their guys were sick. That's why they made some quick subs. And let's also remember, Karim Benzema, World Player of the Year, never played in the tournament. Pogba, Kanté, 2 great midfielders, never played. And France still made it and almost won the whole thing at the last.
No shame in losing a game like that in France. Real quick, Frank.
Yep.
It being decided on penalty kicks. That sits well with you?
I've been saying this for a long time. Maybe after you get to 120 minutes, you take a player off every 5 minutes. But you could see the players. There is intensity in the penalty kick. And look at the way that Argentina reacted, the celebration. It wasn't running around hugging. A lot of players just dropped to their knees. Exhaustion and just the sure, sense of relief that they got it and Messi finally got it.
Frank called it the greatest sports moment globally ever. That's, I guess, ahead of Ali Frazier, ahead of the Miracle on Ice, ahead of the Rumble in the Jungle, ahead of anything from the Olympics,
Giants.
Any Super Bowl. Tim Calishaw, you agree?
I thought it was understood that Vince Young scoring against USC to win the Rose Bowl.
A great moment, too. A great moment,
the
too.
greatest moment of all time.
I'm not going to take points away for that.
But, so if we're going to go to the adult ranks, the professional ranks, whatever, this has to be close. Soccer, like hockey, you can go to a game and the great players aren't necessarily going to score. In this case, the 2 great players scored 5 goals. That was ridiculous. That was his show. And as Frank said, France wasn't even in the game until the second half. I think they got their first corner kick at the 50-minute mark just to show they were going to start trying to, get some scoring chances. And then they came storming back. It was a lot like the Dutch game, only a much better overtime. And I hate to say it, but Argentina, which eliminated my Dutch earlier.
Yes, all right. Thank you very much. Courtney Cronin, was this the greatest global sporting moment ever?
It certainly felt like that, and for somebody covering an NFL game following the World Cup, that was pretty hard to top. Bears and Eagles, I know everybody was expecting a big one out of that.
That wasn't a bad game.
Nonetheless, we talk about the GOAT, the current GOAT in Lionel Messi, and then the baby GOAT, the next one coming up in Mbappe, and you got to think about all that he did in this tournament. 7 goals. He wins the Golden Boot. He's 23 years old. He already won the Cup at 19, so think about what his trajectory is going to be. So while we might be seeing Messi on the the outskirts of his career. Yes, he didn't announce that he's going to retire. Maybe that comes in a couple years. He is 35. We may be seeing his heir apparent in Mbappe, and considering everything that this France team had to do to get back in this game, I think that you can go ahead and chalk that up as one of the greatest finishes that we've ever seen.
And Harry Lyles Jr.
You know, I pride myself on not being a prisoner of the moment, and yesterday was the first time I've sat down and have watched any sporting event in any sport, and I was appalled at how great the thing was that I was watching. I truly could not believe it. And I think part of that is two reasons, right? Like, here in the United States, we talk about world champions, whether it's the Super Bowl or the World Series. This was a truly world event, and it's not like we do this every year. We do this every 4 years. This game had some of the greatest athletes that we've ever seen. To Courtney's point, the current GOAT and the baby GOAT, they both showed up in the ways that we know them to, like, be great. And just that finish was unbelievable. And the fact, I love that we also had a build-up with France and Mbappe not really playing until the 80th minute of this match to build up that suspense and then give us the contest that we knew we were going to get. This was undoubtedly the greatest thing I've ever watched.
I need more on Messi, though. I do. I said he ascended straight into heaven when he was being carried off around the whole stadium multiple times and hoisting up the trophy. It's one of the most beautiful things they do in sports, the way they hoist up the trophy in real time. This was the one trophy he had yet to hoist, Frank Isola. So consider that, and consider these conversations we have. We love having this greatest of all time conversation. It's fun. It's all-encompassing. Something Courtney said, though, holds true. Mbappe, a hat trick in the final, had the golden boot. You know, this could have gone a different way as well. So do you feel the great all-time conversation is over now, or is a new one just starting?
Yeah, and really a beautiful scene with Messi and his kids. And Mbappe is going to have a chance, and luckily we're going to see him in the United States in 4 years in the World Cup. So he's still young. He might become the greatest. At this moment, Lionel Messi is the greatest player. You know, that's Pele, Maradona. For me, Zidane of France, who won a World Cup, made it to another final. Obviously, the headbutt, and he got red carded. But for Messi, everything that he's accomplished, it's just at a different level. And you know what? Ask the players. They'll all tell you Messi's the greatest player of all.
Tim Kalishaw.
You know, I don't know how I can compare him to Pele, but I do know that for 10, 15 years on this show, there's been talk about Messi and Ronaldo. And there might be some people still hanging on.
I don't think so.
You know,
I don't think, who's holding
under Ronaldo by one leg, but I think they lost their grip yesterday.
One's hoisting
Messi's
a trophy, the other's
greatest
looking for a team at the moment. I mean, that's the reality of it, and that's okay. I mean, again, he sent it straight into heaven with this win. One more thing, Frank. I'm still on this. Emiliano Martinez, the Argentina goalkeeper. Yeah. He's a national hero today. He had a kick save at the very end of the very end. He also plays mind games during those kicks. There's also a video of him doing things with the Golden Glove trophy that we can't even show. I mean, we don't have the rights, but the thrusting, I would not. Oh, my goodness, there it is in still form. But do you think Martinez's mind game theatrics actually won the World Cup here, Frank?
You know what? I think it does play into the heads a little bit. He was a jerk afterwards, the way that he acted. But since, you know, I'll say what Harry's doing, prisoner of the moment. In that moment, the 123rd minute, that would have been the latest goal in World Cup history. That was the greatest save, I think, in the history of the World Cup. And Colomani, that young kid came on in the first half. Remember, they replaced Olivier Giroud, who's the all-time leading goal scorer in France history.
He wasn't happy.
He came up in the first half, and that young kid nearly won it. What a story that would have been. That save is off the charts.
Martinez is going to be able to do whatever he wants the rest of his life in Argentina. He may do whatever he wants. What an all-time save. Is this recency bias? Is this prisoner of the moment? Sometimes there's nostalgia favoritism, but I heard it from everybody in this battle. Bigger than Ali Frazier.
Messi and Mbappe.
Bigger, yes.
It's Messi and Mbappe.
Ali Frazier, to me, March 8th, 1971, that's always going to be the biggest for me.
Mm-hmm. How do you follow that up? This is how you follow it up, I guess, if you're in the NFL.
Of course.
With maybe the worst play in NFL history? I mean, that's what I'm going to ask here. I'm going to resist saying what I've said every hook and lateral play since we've started covering it and around the horn, and hook and ladder, because you can call them both, that NFL team should employ a rugby coach. But again, is this the worst play in history? Jacoby Myers said he saw Mac Jones open. He went into hero mode. He did too much. Belichick said they have to play better situational football. Whether these players knew it was a tie game and you shouldn't be doing this, please, somebody, shed some light here, Kalishaw. Is this the worst play in NFL history?
Yes. Just write it down. This has to be. This gets Leon Lett off the hook, probably for either one of his plays, but really it's his blocked field goal or the blocked field goal against Miami that he didn't need to track down in the snow. I don't think everybody knows the rule on that blocked field goal. Everybody knows you do the lateral play when you're behind on the last play of the game. When a game is going to overtime, you don't just start throwing the ball all over the field, especially to a quarterback on the other side of the 50-yard line. What is Mac Jones going to do at that point? It was just terrible decision.
Courtney Cronin, is this the worst play in NFL history?
Yes, and the blame goes on the players and on the coaches. We know that Ramondre Stevenson panicked. That's why he decided to throw the ball behind him, and Jacoby Myers reverted back into his quarterback self from yesteryear, and he panicked as well, trying to throw the ball to Mac Jones. But what drives me nuts about this is that Bill Belichick, following the game, was preaching how they are so dead set on situational awareness. Well, the situation here, you have 3 seconds remaining in the game. Why are you running a draw play there when you say that your quarterback can't heave the ball far enough to run a Hail Mary? So you clearly don't have faith in him there. Why not just take a knee when this game is tied and go to overtime? I feel like the blame goes on the players, it goes on the coaches, and very clearly nobody knew what the score was here, even though they're in a stadium with gigantic video boards everywhere.
Harry Lyles Jr., was this the worst play in NFL history?
I think it might have been, but I also think this is a great test of how the psychology of us as people works, because as soon as that first lateral was thrown by Ramondre Stevenson, everything else went out the door. If you've ever been on an airplane, the plane lands and you hear that beep, everybody, whether you are in 1A or 27A, you unbuckle your seatbelt. So as soon as that first lateral was thrown, everybody was unbuckling their seatbelt. We were in a fire drill, and that is the mode that everybody went into, and that is why you saw all those brain farts.
So, Tim, you brought up Leon Lett, and there's a couple of plays for dear Leon, but it's the play in the snow I think you were talking about. There's a butt fumble, of course. I remember the Indianapolis Colts going for a fake where they had nobody on the line to block. You remember that play famously? Frank Isola, is this the worst play in NFL history?
Yeah. Well, you can also Google Garo Upremium, the famous kicker from Miami Dolphins
that's
in the
another.
Super Bowl.
Yes.
A little bit different, but here with Jacoby Myers, and Harry touched on it. I think in that moment when the ball got pitched to him, I think he forgot what the score was. Why would you be throwing the ball back to Mac Jones? I've done that before, but that's when I'm playing with my buddies when we were 11 years old. You don't do that in an NFL game. What was Mac Jones going to do once he caught the ball? He had to start running with it, and there were defenders all around. I wonder in that moment, I don't think he's going to admit it, maybe he forgot what the score was and thought they were losing by a point and figured he had to keep the play going. That is a blunder of blunders.
This play will live forever. Chandler Jones spiking Mac Jones into the ground. Will live forever as well. It's you know who was taking the biggest breath of relief there was referees and the officiating and the review crew, because that touchdown, Cole, the play, possession before, was his foot. I mean, looks like he was on the line. Oh, wow.
He was out.
All right, coming up, how do you follow that up? Well, maybe we follow it up with the biggest comeback in the history of the worst choke job in the history of the sport, the greatest comeback in the history of sport, or just normal Vikings Colts stuff.
I mean, this Vikings team was down 33-0 at halftime and came back to win. So I'm going to go ahead and say it is the greatest comeback in NFL history. But at the same time, as it's impressive, it's also very alarming considering how many one-score games this Minnesota Vikings team has been in and just how sustainable this level of play is going into the postseason. Yes, they wrapped up the NFC North, and what happened at halftime is Patrick Peterson goes and tells the offense, hey, just rattle off 5 touchdowns. We've got you. They did that. They scored with efficiency, but that's not sustainable to do.
Yeah, you think? 32, the comeback is not sustainable. Yes, Harry Lyles Jr., how about you?
I'm buying that this is frustrating if you're looking at the Vikings because you're 11-3 and you had that first half, then you had that monstrous second half, and your point differential is just +2. Like, we know how great you can be. Why can't you be like that all the time? But I am also going to say, Tony, the absolute worst choke job in NFL history happened February 5th, 2017, when the Atlanta Falcons lost the Super Bowl to the New England Patriots, and you can never take that away.
So 28-3.
Unfortunately.
Also, Matt Ryan, it has to be said, I say sadly, is the worst of all time. You're saying there's frustration from the Vikings here. Frank Isola, where do you come down?
Indianapolis has to figure out a way to manage that game to the end. But remember, too, Courtney's killing Minnesota. They're 11-3 for crying out loud. I get it. They're going to get a home playoff game. Maybe with a little luck, they get 2 or 3 home playoff games. I'll say this. We saw Jeff Saturday a month ago in this studio. All the color is gone from his face. What is he doing? I feel bad for the guy. That is a miserable existence, right?
Well, yeah, you can feel bad for him. How did he let this game get away, Tim Cowlishaw?
For some of us who had greater expectations for the Colts this year, this was a particularly tough game. But yeah, maybe this is what happens when you go hire your head coach off first take. Maybe you should think about those things when you're running a team that way. But as Harry alluded to, Matt Ryan, his fingerprints are all over the two worst collapses, one Super Bowl, one regular season of all time. They didn't really need points. They just needed to move 30 yards occasionally, take a little time off the clock. That would have been enough, but they couldn't.
Okay. In history, this was the largest comeback, or if you see it the other way, choke. So where are you putting it on the list, Tim, with also the 28-3 Super Bowl for the Falcons, which we all agree was the biggest game.
Buffalo over
and then Houston and Buffalo. Where is this one?
Super Bowl's always going to be worse because it's the Super Bowl, and there was no reason to keep playing the way Shanahan had them playing. This is just a bad team being really stupid.
And how do you follow that up? Well, I don't know if we exactly followed up, but we have two of the greatest turnarounds in the NFL season this year. One of them, the Jacksonville Jaguars, are surging, and they're now a game back in the playoffs by way of the AFC South. Jaguars 40, Cowboys 34, winning in overtime on the walk-off tip drill pick six. Trevor Lawrence shredding the Dallas defense in the second half comeback. Cowboys pretty much boxed into the 5 seed no matter what, because Philly wins every week. So, Tim, what do you buy, what do you sell from this result?
I'm selling what the Cowboys did late in regulation. A lot of things went wrong, but Trevor Lawrence fumbles inside the 2-minute mark. If you get a first down, the game's over. If you run it 3 times, the Jacksonville Jaguars are out of timeouts. The Cowboys didn't do either of those things, and they gave them a chance, and the Jaguars took it from them.
Of course, the Cowboys reporter is focusing on the Cowboys. Courtney Cronin, how about you?
I'm buying that the Jaguars have turned a corner. They won 3 of their last 4 games, and after that third quarter interception, Trevor Lawrence rattled off 3 straight touchdown drives in less than 9 minutes of game time. He's showing that he is going to be the franchise quarterback for this team, and sneakily getting Jacksonville into the playoff conversation late. I like it.
Harry Lyles Jr.
Yeah, I'm buying that if you're the Jaguars, you got to feel good about your immediate and your future because you have your own, you control your own destiny for the division. Your greatest threat is the Tennessee Titans. And since November, Trevor Lawrence has thrown 14 touchdowns, 1 pick on 70 completion percentage. You have to feel really, really good about what you got
Frank
going on.
Isola.
I keep hearing about the Dallas big-time defense. How are you blowing a 17-point lead? But Tim hit on it. On third down, they're overthinking it. Run the ball, make Jacksonville use their last timeout. Why are you throwing a bomb into the corner? That was a big mistake by their offense right there.
Turnaround, the Jaguars and the Detroit Lions, that we'll talk about in a second, have had in just one season to get into playoff conversation in December. Amazing. How do you follow that up? By saying goodbye to Tim Cowlishaw and Courtney Cronin. What a day, guys. Sorry, we got to move. Lyles, Isola.